I know, folks, our defibrillator campaign that we ran on the show last week resonated with so many of you. Listeners have actually called in to say that new committees have been formed as a result of our campaign. New committees have been formed locally to explore the idea of securing a defibrillator for their community. Isn't that fantastic? And major checks, I know, were carried out on all the defibrillators that are already in place to make sure that they're fully functional. Now, this morning, once again, I want to sincerely thank the Lawler family who kick-started this hugely successful initiative. And out of what was a terrible tragedy with the sudden passing of their loved one, Shane, came a really positive, fruitful and widespread community effort, which I know will ultimately save lives. Well, this morning, we want to bring our campaign to our online audience. Yes, live in studio, we are about to demonstrate how to operate a defibrillator, and also our great friend James Quinn from the Newtown Forbes First Responders will introduce us to some life-saving CPR skills. By the way, later this afternoon, this demo will be available for all to see on our social media platforms. James, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Joe.
And you're a gentleman for coming in, and you have with you all sorts of props and all sorts of equipment, and you're in full uniform. You're a member of the Newtown Forbes First Responders.
I am indeed, surely, Joe, for the last 9.5 years.
Good man. Why do you do it?
Well, listen, I suppose it's a sense of achievement to help out in your local community and not be given out for once to do something productive in the area. And if it saves lives, it saves lives.
And you must get huge satisfaction from it, because I noticed in all the conversations I had last week during the campaign, I could sense, even though it was over the phone or what have you, people draw huge satisfaction from it all, the work they're doing.
To be honest with you, Joe, at the Christmas just past, I had made my mind up to actually depart from it all, and a few people says, well, sure, look at what are we going to do? We're going to be lost without you.
Right.
So they says, look at, have a think about it over the Christmas, come back to us in early January, and sure, look at, we will try and get a few volunteers as well. So with a bit of arm twisting, they got me back on board.
Well done, and we're delighted they did, because you're with us today.
Yeah.
Let's first of all take a look at this defibrillator. This is so important. You can take it out here because we have the cameras here in studio, James, and before we work on before we put it into action, let's just talk about the defibrillator itself. Is this a standard defibrillator that you have here with you in studio this morning?
This is what we call a training defibrillator. So this is operated by your ordinary Energizer batteries. It will not harm anybody, and this is what you will see at a typical CPR class.
Right. Okay.
So it's a symbol of the live defibrillators in our own communities.
Okay, so then let's start from the beginning.
From the beginning, okay, we're going to act this out, okay, to our wider audience. A 999 call has come in. The person that's making the call will actually will tell ambulance control there's been a cardiac arrest, we'll say, in Main Street, Longford Town.
Right.
We'll just act it out. The responders will be dispatched, or sometimes you could have a citizen or a passerby that may be a doctor or a nurse that may be able to offer assistances, or it could be just a family member. So we never run to a scene. We always walk, and we carry out our activities in a normal and respectful way to other road users. So we get to a patient scene. The first thing that we do, everybody should do, is have your PPE on, your disposable gloves, and scene safety. Scene safety is very, very important, because if we run to a scene and we end up hurting ourselves, well then there's need then for 2 ambulances, and then it's when the first aider needs a first aider.
Right. So there's a protocol there.
There is a protocol
that has to be adhered to.
Absolutely.
And that you and your colleagues who are trained,
yes,
that's exactly what you will do. No matter what, you stick to the protocol.
It's called health and safety, Joe.
Right.
And as soon as we get to a defibrillator, we always check it. As I always say, take 10 seconds, turn it on, make sure it's working. There's no point in turning up to a scene where it's not working.
Right. Now, just for the benefit of our listeners, to say to you that James has joined us in studio with a defibrillator and also, what do I refer to this?
CPR mannequin.
A CPR mannequin. And we're going to use this for our demonstration this morning. And I would appeal to you, ladies and gentlemen, later this afternoon when Kieran puts all this up online, I would ask you to log on and you can see for yourself exactly how this life-saving procedure is carried out.
Okay, so the responders are dispatched. We arrive at the scene. We're all rocked up to the scene. Our defibrillator and all is ready to go. We have our own cells protected. We arrive. The first thing we do is we check the airways. So we do airways ABC, airways, breathing, circulation. That will determine is the person in cardiac arrest, are they breathing, are they responding? Right. So you normally pinch the nose, head tilt, chin lift. You check to see is their airway clear, that there's nothing obstructing it. You would get down. You would get down and you'd look at the rise and fall of the chest to see is there any airway movement,
right? And
then or are the breathing as well, and you'd also check their carotid pulse to see is there any kind of circulation or any movement at all.
This is the pulse to the side of the neck.
This is the pulse.
Okay.
So we'll say none of this is happening. Their airway is clear. There's no airway compromise. They're not breathing. They've no pulse. They've no nothing. What you do is you call help. You shout for help. So you call for help. You call 999 or 112. That's the ambulance service. The ambulance service, if you give the signs and symptoms over the phone to the ambulance control, they will ask where's the nearest defibrillator. Sometimes if you're on your own, you will have to go out and get the defibrillator. If not, you may have to ask somebody to get the defibrillator for you. Right. And also you will have to start a CPR as well as quickly as possible.
Okay.
So once the defibrillator arrives, you turn it on, you place it on the side that you're going to be shocking the person. I'll explain that in a second, Joe.
Right.
You put on the pads. It's very important at this stage, if there's a second person with you, that there's good communication among both parties, because this is life or death here, Joe. This is we're talking minutes. And it does happen in reality. But
can I just ask you, because you said there, I can understand, and people today will see this when we put the footage up online. You have, and it makes sense. So the defibrillator is here beside the mannequin.
Yes.
Now, you just mentioned then about the pads. So this is one of the pads. Okay. This is another one of the pads. So where are those pads for someone who just gets a defibrillator and has never laid eyes on one before?
There's a diagram on all the pads to show exactly whereabouts to put them. So it's one above the right nipple, and it's just the left pad will go just below the left nipple onto the left hand side.
But there are diagrams on the pads which show you where to put them.
And the reason why they're put that way is that the shock will go right across the heart.
Okay.
And a defibrillator, it's there. The person has gone into cardiac arrest, so it means that they're clinically dead. They're in what they call ventricular fibrillation. And they need to be shocked as soon as possible. A defibrillator stops the heart in order for the heart to restart at its normal heart rhythm.
Right. Okay. So we're at the stage where the pads have been fitted, James.
The pads have been fitted.
The defibrillator is in place. Take us to the next step.
The next step is always your mobile phone will be on loudspeaker right beside you there where the ambulance
Yeah, this was a crucial part of the conversation we had last week. It was a comforting part where it was clearly stated to me that when you make that call to the emergency services, they will talk you through this.
They will. No one should be afraid of the defibrillator, because the defibrillator, once you turn it on, the voice prompts will talk you right through it. Now, I've had to do CPR myself, and the ambulance control were absolutely fantastic. They would talk you right through it. So instead of doing 30 compressions and 2 rescue breaths, they'd say, well, count with us, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're analysing that continuously on a screen. So it's absolutely fantastic.
And phone is on loudspeaker while all of this is happening.
Phone is on loudspeaker, and there's an ambulance on way. So basically, there's ambulance with blues and twos on the way.
On the way. Next step.
So you're after doing 30 compressions and 2 rescue breaths. Your second responder or a family member or a friend has come with the defibrillator. The first thing you do is you turn it on.
Training mode. Call for help. Remove pads from package in back of unit. Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown.
We're doing that at the moment.
Isn't this amazing?
Apply pads to patient's bare chest as shown.
It's
Analyzing
talking to
heart
you.
rhythm.
It's advising
do
you
not touch
what
the
to do.
patient.
Yeah.
So now there's more.
Shock advised. Charging. Stand clear.
This is where everybody that's operating the defibrillator, you must stand clear.
Right.
Everybody stand clear.
Press
Stand clear.
flashing shock button. Shock 1 delivered. It is safe to touch the patient.
Straight back into
Begin
CPR.
CPR now.
Straight back into CPR. And this defibrillator will analyse every 2 minutes.
Right.
So I could say shock advised, no shock advised,
Continue.
no shock advised.
So it's doing its thing.
It's analysed, or it's, yeah.
And at the same time, it's talking to
Continue
you.
for 1 minute 45 seconds.
It's nearly like AI. It's talking to you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because this will give massive reassurance to people like yours truly. I've never laid eyes, I don't think, on a device like that before. You're asking yourself, right, what am I going to do here? So it's all, you've talked about the protocols and the different health and safety, the reassuring phone call that's there on your phone on loudspeaker. People are giving you the advice, giving you the information, reassuring you. And then when someone arrives with the defibrillator, if you've never used it before, there's nothing to fear because the defibrillator will advise you through the process.
It's like when computers come out first, people were afraid to touch the screens in case they'd actually break them. No, unless you want to physically throw it up against a wall and break it, it will not break it. It'll talk you right through it. And these training defibrillators can range between 250 and €1,000.
Right.
Like, it's the technology that's in it, like, you know.
Yeah. Because we know, one of the things that came up during the campaign last week was the funding as well, and the need for, there is funding from local government, but also an integral part of this whole initiative is funding from the local community as well, James.
Like, it's the defibrillators and responder groups are for the community. They belong to the community and they're for the community and they're for everybody. And, like, you know, in order to keep it going, people are going to have to pay into it in order to keep the service going.
Yeah.
Simple as.
So you followed the instructions.
And
at this stage now, the defibrillator has played its part. It's done its bit. It's administered the shocks. Is that the right word?
Yes.
The shocks. And now it's in the hands of
the National Ambulance Service or whoever is available will actually they'll rock up, they will ask how many shocks was given, they might ask the people to continue CPR while they're getting their kit ready, and 9 out of 10 times they will actually stand down the responders. So the responders have to give over both either a verbal or a written handover on your CFR report form. And, like, you know, anybody that has been sort of affected after a little bit of anxiety or distress or second guessing, there is what they call a critical stress incident course as well, where normally there'll be a member of the responder team that'll be there available to talk with them as well.
Thank you so much
for
coming into studio today. I think when people see this online, it will give them an insight into how it works. And there's really, look, it would be too glib of me to say there's nothing to be worried or concerned about.
There's nothing to be
but
concerned
it's
about.
easy to use, easy to manage, and it's self-explanatory in so many ways. And the device itself is designed to help you along.
Absolutely. And once people are trained as cardiac first responders, once they stay within their own scope of practice, they're 100%. Once they don't go outside of it, they're okay.
You're an absolute gentleman, no doubt about it. And thank you so much for the great work that you're doing there. Oh, I still have more time. I didn't realise that. Now, which means I can go back to where I am. You can pull over a seat there, James. I thought I was out of time there, but I'm being told now I still have more time. Because I wanted just to go through, you've talked about the device. The CPR, James. People are, for those of us, including myself, just before I ask you this question, it is true, isn't it, that 3 hours and you have the skills and the wherewithal. A 3-hour course is available, and in that time you will learn the skills and the wherewithal to administer CPR and work, or you'll be able to use a defibrillator.
3-hour course, or maybe between 3 hours and 3.5 hours, depending on questions and depending on the group, will cover you to use a defibrillator. You will actually be certified within 3 hours.
Wow.
There's a practical assessment at the end.
Because the CPR, this is all about the compressions, isn't it?
The whole idea of compressions, Joe, is actually getting the blood back up to the brain as well, that the person won't be brain damaged or anything like that. So it's keeping the whole blood flow circulating. Yeah,
someone got a beautiful letter in during the week from a lady who learned her CPR skills 50 years ago and still makes it her business every couple of years to go back and get refreshers and all of that sort of thing. But she was making the point in her letter that the skills are still the same. They haven't changed. And one of the things she asked me to point out on the show was that when people are administering CPR, they're concerned that maybe is it compressing too hard? And then in some cases, the compression, the force isn't hard enough or strong enough. It's a fine line, is it?
There is a fine line. There is a depth about 3 inches, about 2.5 to 3 inches of a compression down, and you will hear cracking off ribs, and that is natural. If you break a rib, the person
it's the lesser of two evils.
Absolutely, Joe. I was trying to think of that word there myself, because you could have a person with no ribs broken, and it mightn't have been a successful outcome.
Yeah.
So to break a rib is okay, and especially for anyone that's doing it on.
But that gives me an insight into the level of compression that's required.
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, it's about finding your level, and this, I'm sure, is an integral part of the course when you go to do it. But I think people are scared, whereas they know by watching television or whatever, they know exactly what to do, but they're just scared that they're not compressing, or maybe they're doing it too heavily, or maybe they're doing it too lightly.
Well, I did a survey back a few years ago, and I just asked random people that says we'd be afraid in case we'd hurt the person.
That's it.
In case we'd be sued. And the Good Samaritan law will cover you in an act of kindness. Once you don't go outside your medical scope of practice, you are covered. But people have this fear nowadays of even to nearly step in to save someone's life in case that they're going to be sued, and that fear is still there among people, and it has come back to me, that says, sure, look, we'll get the defibrillator, we'll do whatever you want, but don't ask us to do chest compressions.
Yeah.
That fear is still there,
Yeah. Because CPR, thankfully, and hopefully as a result of this campaign, we'll see more and more defibrillators in our communities, and we'll see more and more functioning defibrillators. But in some cases, you can't have a defibrillator at every crossroads, whereas you have your hands with you wherever you go. And CPR also can save lives, and you don't always need the defibrillator when administering CPR.
Joe, it's called, one word, common sense. We were given, all you're doing is going to a class, you're coming in with your hands empty, you're going out with a handful of skills, but you're not going to be, if you turn up to a scene or anything like that, you can't, you have to think outside the box. And your hands is as good as anything. If they can keep someone alive while somebody goes to get a defibrillator or call the ambulance service, it's a big bonus.
Yeah. And I think one of the things we gathered from our conversations last week with you, James, and all the other wonderful first responders is that thankfully more and more people are signing up. More and more people want to be trained. More and more people in the communities realise the value of this training, and more as we said earlier, committees are being formed, which will result, hopefully, in defibrillators being purchased and serviced. And long may that continue.
I did a little bit of research last night. The out-of-hospital cardiac arrests. These are figures going back to October of last year. That says over 2,857 people who suffered an out-of-hospital cardiac arrest, which is someone in our own community or a family member, where resuscitation was 240 individuals, or 8.4% walked out of hospital alive.
Right.
To go on to a full recovery. And the facts are there.
Yeah, the facts are there. Thank you once again.
Thank yourself,
You're an
Joe.
absolute gentleman.
Thanks
I know
very
you've
much.
put a lot of effort into this. You've taken time out from your normal schedule to be with us. Everything that we've done this morning in studio will be available online on all our social media platforms across the day. But it's just one of the things I took from last week. We spent so much time, valuable time, worthwhile time, talking about this. And then I was saying to myself, well, what about those who would like to see this for real, almost pictorially, with video, with footage or what have you? And that's why we decided to carry out this exercise this morning. So it will be available across all the platforms throughout the day. Thank you, James, and thank you to all your colleagues across the region who do marvellous work.